All right, hello everybody. I hope that we've got a good audience out there. It's always a little awkward not being able to see exactly what's going on out there, but welcome to SeaRUG for April of 2020, our second online meeting of this year. And we'll see how many more of these we have to do. I certainly prefer the in-person stuff, but hey, there's some silver linings, right? So for example, I'll introduce myself. My name is David DeYarsa. I'm the current board president of the SeaRUG board and CEO of BuilderBox. And one of the benefits here is I actually get to showcase my home office. So this is where all the magic happens, as they say, with BuilderBox. So anyway, hope that you enjoy that. Just a little side there. And I'll actually start the meeting here and get my webcam off and go over to my slides. And I'll get off the microphone here in just a couple of minutes and hand it over to our presenter, which is what everybody came here to see. So again, thank you very much for joining us for Revit in this fairly nice day here in Seattle. It's been beautiful, which makes this whole thing a little bit awkward and very strange being stuck at home when it's so beautiful out there and all these weird things are happening around us. So I sincerely hope that everybody's healthy, that everybody's safe, and not just physically, but mentally as well, which I find that to be sometimes the most challenging part. But anyway, I digress, so let's get right to it. So on today's agenda, we've got, we obviously don't have the lunch that we usually have, and we don't have the networking that we usually have. So we're gonna get straight to our presentation. We've got Topcon Solutions store is formerly PPI, to those of you that have been with us for a while. That name kind of went away a while ago, but you'll recognize it still. We've got David Campbell, application specialist with Topcon Solutions store. And we're going to take a look at one of my favorite subjects, actually, which is the Revit coordinate systems. It used to be so easy back in the CAD days, to think about the world coordinate systems and the 0, and Revit certainly has added some complexity to that, but also some great capabilities. So I'm really looking forward to this presentation. Of course, I have to thank all of our partners for 2020. We've got a couple of new partners this year, the Wild and Puget Systems, as well as Unify, who presented last month. So thank you very much to all the sponsors that make this possible. And of course, a big thank you as well to the SeaRUG board that helped put these meetings together and curate content, and in general lead the direction of this group. And we've been at this a really long time, and it's one of the best Revit user groups I think anywhere around. So that's a big testament to everybody here on screen, and quite frankly everybody that attends. So thank you very much for taking the time. And as promised, I'm going to make this very short and sweet. I'm going to turn this over to David Campbell with Topcon Solutions store, and take it away, David. I'll switch over the presentation to you.
All right. Thank you very much, David. And as always, thank you guys for having me. So I'm very excited to be able to present for you guys again. I always enjoy an opportunity to come out and hang out with you guys, network, and kind of share some knowledge with some like-minded individuals, right? So today I wanted to, of course, talk about Revit shared coordinates. So before I get there, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about us. So a lot of you did know us as PPI. We are now Topcon Solutions store, and with being Topcon Solutions, we are the retail division of Topcon Positioning Systems, the world leader in construction layout, machine automation, and land surveying products. But on the other side of that, we are still a platinum tier award-winning, Autodesk partner and certified training center, as well as a platinum level Bluebeam partner. So we are still a consulting kind of tech support, all of that stuff. We still do all of that, but now we're combining it with the layout, machine automation, land surveying, and really incorporating the rest of Topcon, because now we have 13 brick and mortar locations, and we are in 20 states, including Washington, D.C. So we've got a kind of wider spread now, but also a wider network of support with different individuals that focus on many different workflows and kind of working in that sense. So your presenter, it is me, David Campbell. Now, I chose to show this picture and not turn on my webcam because honestly, I haven't gotten a haircut or beard trim in like a month. And I was just, I was looking in the mirror last night, you know, brushing my teeth, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I look like I'm sitting on an island with Wilson right now. I really need to invest in some trimmers here and get this all kind of controlled. So I wanted to talk about one big thing. Revit 2021 is here, right? So Revit 2021 has released. That is very, very exciting. I did get a chance to look at a lot of the new features and kind of inclusions that they've done with this new release. A lot of exciting things. I mean, especially generative design. I mean, I could talk on this stuff for days. It's very, very exciting to see it. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, go give it a look. I've done a write-up on my LinkedIn profile, but there's also a blog right from Autodesk with some videos and things that you guys can go through and see exactly what it is that they've done. All right, so for today's agenda, I wanted to start with having a conversation kind of about what shared coordinates are, talk about the survey and base points. I'll actually, if you guys have Revit open, or if you guys can open up Revit, I want to go through a coordinates primer exercise. So I want to kind of get you guys ready with these coordinate systems, introduce you to what survey point and a base point is, and then talk about how they kind of affect this model and how these coordinates work. We will go through acquiring coordinates, publishing coordinates, and then inserting by shared coordinates after that. So we're going to kind of go through the entire workflow and talk about this. So this is going to be my last slide here, guys. I promise. I don't do the whole death by PowerPoint, but with shared coordinates. So shared coordinates are known, right, for being internal coordinates for all of the elements, I guess, or I'm getting ahead of myself here. Revit has the internal coordinates, or kind of the data for all of the elements that compose that model in a project. So the big thing is, though, that those coordinates are known only to that project. Have like a standalone model, and its position isn't really relevant to any other models because you're not linking anything in. But if you need to know how the mechanical system or maybe the structural foundation of that, you know, model, and all of the other information that's going through that model is going to, let's say, play correctly, right? Or just that even when you bring it in, it lines up accordingly because it knows where it is. That's really where you need those shared coordinates, right? That positioning that these other models recognize. So we want to use the shared coordinate tools to establish relative positions of those different files to ensure that relationship is kind of maintained. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell it where it belongs. We're going to pull information and we can tell it where it goes. And in that sense, every time moving forward, it knows where it is. So of course, to establish that, you know, common coordinate position and those, I'd say, coordinates, you use the acquire coordinates or publish that coordinates, right? Publish those coordinates. So I'm going to take this right into Revit. And can you guys still see my Revit screen? All right. So in Revit here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with a new model here. Okay. I'm just going to go into the architectural template and okay. A couple things I did want to talk about as I get into this. Of course, the survey and base point, but also, let me get in my 3D view here. I wanted to talk about the internal origin. So the project and base points, as well as the internal origin, are going to be found under Site in your visibility graphics, okay? So here's that internal origin, here's the base point, and here's the survey point. Okay, so of course with this template, everything's located at 0, 0. So with positioning of these models, I would say that internal origin, being able to show that in both of those models, it's going to give you a really good idea when you're bringing them in, kind of what's located where. Now, I'm going to go ahead and turn that internal origin back off, just because I wanted to just highlight that really quick. But what I want to work with here is our project base point, which for those of you who don't know, your project base point, let me go back and turn off the survey point just so I can specify the difference here. Okay, this is your project base point. To me, it kind of reminds me of the X-Men symbol, right? But you're looking at a circle with an X through it. The project base point defines the origin of the project coordinate system. It's a reference point for measurements across your entire site. Okay, but really this is referencing where your project is. Then we have, there we go. Then we have your survey points. Let me go ahead and turn this one off for a second. Turn this survey point on. Your survey point is the little triangle with an addition symbol in it. So your survey point identifies the real world location near the model itself, such as a corner of your property or the site, or maybe if you have an intersection of property lines or a geodetic survey marker, you can utilize that as the survey point. Okay, that's going to be those real world, again, real world coordinates. Excuse me, just grabbing a drink of my tea there. So I'm going to activate this base point again. Okay. And what I want to do here really quick, and this is the kind of primer I told you guys about. What I'm going to do is I've activated, of course, the project and the project base point and the survey point. And I'm going to draw a detail line, which I probably just need to get into my site view, huh? That'd probably make it a lot easier. I'll get into my site view, and then I'll activate the detail line here. So what I'm going to do is draw a detail line. Doesn't matter what the length is or the angle, but I'm going to start right at the origin here, right at the center of your project base point and survey point. Okay. And what I want to do is, after I've drawn that that detail line there, I'm going to draw a spot coordinate off of the end of that line. Okay, so that spot coordinate, of course, as we know, tells us exactly where this is located. So of course this is 0, 0, right? So let's say that I grab my base point. All right, and I move it. Notice this does not change, okay? This does not change at all based off of me moving that base point. It has a new east-west, north and south. So it has new data here. It's reading this new data. But again, we know that this project base point is going to be my origin, right? So I want to specify this. That's where I'll go to manage, and I'm going to specify coordinates at point. This is me telling it, I know where this is. And when I choose this base point to be 0, 0, this changes to reflect. Okay, so I just wanted to give you guys an idea on how these coordinates kind of systems can work. Now, I have another one where I can go and link another model in, and we can, acquire the coordinates from that, do all that stuff. But what I plan on doing with you guys now is we all have a really good basic understanding of this coordinate system. So I'm going to go into starting as in we're linking a, let's say, CAD file. I'm going to get out of this, and let's go ahead, and I'm going to stay in this architectural template here. I'm going to undo most of this stuff, get it back to normal. Okay, so what I want to do is, let's say I want to acquire the coordinates from a DWG, right? And I want to pull that data, that survey data, okay? When I do this, I can go insert and link topo or link CAD. I'm going to go ahead and do link CAD for now. Find my documents here. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll grab my DWG or that Civil 3D file, kind of what have you, as long as it has coordinates published in it. Now you can choose to go origin to internal origin, which is generally what I'd say is going to be good, really good to do, other than doing the maybe center to center. Okay. But I'm going to go ahead and make sure the current view only is checked off, by the way. I'm going to bring it in, and there it is. So when I need to pull that data from that CAD file, this is where I would go to manage and then acquire. So I'm actually going to pull the data itself. And what I want you guys to watch here when I do this, watch the survey point. So when I do this, notice that the survey point itself has moved to the corner, or that's essentially like the corner of the footprint of my building, right? So we know there's a marker here for the site, right? So in this case, I could go ahead, grab my project base point, go ahead, grab it, probably move it over to this corner here, and position it where I need to. Now, in this sense, I have the coordinates for this DWG in this blank model, right? This nice little template here. Let's say that I want to position my building on this, right? Now, some of you, the way that this has been done before, and I've been guilty of this too, believe me, and I've learned the hard way with it. I will, link in this CAD drawing here into my Revit model, and maybe I'll try to move that CAD file, and move it to where it needs to be so it lines up with my Revit model, or I move my Revit model and try to position it right onto, the footprint of this CAD file. And the problem with that is, as you guys know, I mean, you either change the coordinates kind of positioning of that DWG, it goes where it needs to go, or you're leaving elements like behind within Revit, they stretch if you have a curtain wall or anything like that. Some don't like to be moved. You can break any of your joins, different things like that. We all know those issues, right? So what I would say to kind of get around all of that is to use something like I'm doing here with this architectural template. At this time, I could go ahead, insert, link Revit, and grab my Revit model. Now I'm going to do it to internal origin, and that's fine. Okay, notice this is where it's gone. So I'm going to grab this link at that point, and maybe I want to pull it in with the survey point, or maybe I just grab the corner. I'll do the corner here. Probably would have been better off the survey point, but there we go. And what I'm going to do from there, rotate it. Okay. So now my building is positioned on the site. Okay. At that point, that's when I need to go ahead and actually go to manage and publish coordinates. Okay. So I'm going to publish these coordinates. Now, the nice thing here that this pops up, this is asking what the site name for this positioning is going to be used. So if you guys are working on, let's say, bigger projects with multiple buildings on a site, you guys can go and name these individual kind of positionings for these buildings based off of that, so it knows where to go. Okay. Especially with like wastewater treatment facilities where they have so many different buildings, it's very common to see something like that with multiple sites set up so they can kind of assign that positioning to those different buildings. It's a great tool. In this case, I'm just going to use the internal. I could rename this to my site or kind of what have you, building positioning, but I'm just going to leave it with the internal and say okay. Once I've done that, I've published these coordinates into this model itself, okay? And when I go to save, and let's actually say I'm going to put this as, yeah, we'll just call it project 1. Let's say save. It's going to ask me to save this current position into that RVT model. So if I save this back in, again, that information is now stored inside of that Revit model, okay? So just to test this out, let's say I go into open, I'm gonna grab that commercial building. And let's say I go to site, insert, link CAD, and I did not link either one of those. Honestly, I did it through that architectural template. And at this point in time, I'm going to go by shared coordinates, hit open, and there it is. Okay, so this positioning is saved back to each one of those models, the CAD file, the RVT model, what have you. I like using those kind of blank templates or those, in between models to really get all this data together and position these buildings. And really, as I said earlier, when they're links, I feel like it's a lot easier to really move them around and kind of manipulate them as I need to, right? And in that sense, you guys can also go through and make any adjustments and when you open up the actual model itself, okay? Let me see if I had anything else here. Did you guys have any questions based off of that? I know that was quite fast and furious. All right.
So David, there are a couple of questions on the questions panel, if you want to take a look at those and answer real quick.
I don't have them. I don't have that panel. I have the chat.
Oh, interesting.
I don't think I can see.
If you don't have that, you should have that panel over there. If you don't, what we'll do is we'll just make sure that these questions get recorded. I'm seeing them come through and we can answer them, maybe record the answers for the YouTube version of this or something like that. Okay.
Yeah. Did you want to read them out?
Sure. Okay, let's see. So there was a question earlier from Mark Rainville asking, specify coordination at point is how you get around the clipped PBP usage.
Okay, yeah, essentially, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead if you have an answer for that.
Well, I was gonna say, I'm not sure what the PVP, but I know in terms of specifying coordinates at a point, yes, you are saying this is where it is. I know exactly based off of, let's say you have a scan and you have an element, anything like that, you align it with existing conditions, you're saying, I know this is where it is. So you're at that point, you're getting around the coordinates like the internal origin of the project because you're specifying these coordinates. So you're kind of overriding them, as to say.
Okay, and there's another question over here about published coordinate approach not working within models on BIM 360. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Okay, so when you do it in BIM 360, my advice would be to push those models into BIM 360. You have to go through manage links and actually reload your links. And at that point, that's when I would share that positioning back into those models. Once those links are kind of established, or when you're linking them in even, because those models have to be in BIM 360. And at that point, that link has to be kind of, I'd say, restored. So those buildings know. And then once I believe once you share the positioning at that point, you're just storing it in BIM 360 rather than storing the old positioning that was saved on your local. And that building, once it was moved, it's kind of like any absolute file path, right? It just breaks.
Okay, excellent. So I'll tell you what, we actually have quite a few questions kind of coming in fast and furious over here. And as I kind of anticipated, this topic actually generates quite a bit of debate. So I think to not derail you, maybe we can keep moving forward, and you and I might be able to maybe take a look at these and come up with a way to respond to these and get to everything after the meeting and publish it somehow. I think that'd be really helpful. But I don't want to derail you and kind of let you keep going with your timing.
Well, honestly, I was doing pretty good. I was really going to talk about, if they needed to export this with coordinates, anything like that. Once the positioning has been saved, we could go through an export, and it would take the kind of coordinate data with it. So, okay. Honestly, that was about all that I probably went pretty quick here.
Okay, well, in that case, we actually just have, like, the last thing just came in as you were talking about the BIM 360 process. We have a request here to see if you can maybe demonstrate that. And so if you were going to do an export, and we also have a request to maybe expand a little bit and dive through what you just did, but maybe kind of demonstrate a couple of steps a little bit more in depth and kind of run through it again. And yeah, I do see that in a couple of spots, kind of the show the acquire coordinates again kind of a thing. So maybe if you can run through some of it again and maybe expand.
Yeah, of course, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
So I'll go back again and I'll do new, and I'll do a architectural template. And I'll start back from the acquire coordinates. Does that sounds good? Okay, we'll go do here. So essentially, again, I would go ahead and insert in any model. Now, in this case, I'm inserting a survey, right? I'm going from that CAD DWG, but if, let's say, you're a structural and mechanical focus and you want to pull in this architectural model, it's the same kind of workflow. You guys can acquire the coordinates from that and then, position your model and save it. Okay, so in that sense, I would go link CAD, and I can also do a Revit, just strictly Revit if you guys wanted to do something like that as well. Now, in here, since I'm going brand new, I'm going to go to origin to internal origin, so origin to origin, and I'm going to bring in my DWG here. And at that point, I would go to manage and acquire coordinates here. Okay, so this is under project location and acquire coordinates. And what I'm doing is really just matching the real world location of any like survey marker, again, that geodetic survey marker, or intersection of property lines, corner of the site here, or corner of the building here in this case, from that model. And at that point, I've acquired the positioning of that model. It knows where it is. So if I go and I'm going to move this one again, and maybe I'll just put them right over the top of each other. Okay. At that point, this is when I would go ahead and link in my other model. So I'd go ahead in this term again, link Revit. I would grab that commercial building and internal origin to internal origin or center to center. Okay. And again, at this point, I like using these links because they move a lot easier, right? I just don't have a lot of things breaking, anything like that. And it's not moving anything in my model itself. It's really just, it's going to save these positioning, like the coordinates to it. So I'll go ahead, move this. Put it right here. Again, I'm going to rotate to position my building. All right. Now, once I have this building placed where it is supposed to be, that's where I go to manage and publish coordinates. So because this is a link, I'm going to publish and tell this building exactly where it goes on this site. Now, in this case, I didn't do this last time, but I could say building site. Okay, and at that point, I say okay. And that is the name of the position of this building. Okay. Now I would save this because once I save this, it's going to save the positioning of these models back into them. Okay, so back into the DWG, back into the Revit model itself. And here's where I go ahead and hit save the position back to the new link. Now, if this is coming from BIM 360, in that sense, what I would need to do is actually, I actually might have these models there. So let's do this. We're gonna go architectural template. All right, so for those of you, and let me move this off, that's probably real annoying. For those of you using BIM 360, okay, for this, I would need to go ahead and make sure you guys have that desktop connector installed. You have active permissions to get into the folders and docs, and you have that design collaboration kind of enabled, right? At this point, I can go insert, and let's say I'm going to link CAD. This time, I'm gonna go from my computer. I'm gonna find BIM 360. There we go. Find my account. Find my project. And then find the files that I would want to link in. So if I have a civil team, that's not the one I wanted. Let's see if I have any other. Well, you know what, just to do it, we're gonna go ahead and see if I can use one of these anyways. I'm not sure exactly what are in some of these. Now, one thing to note is that, okay, yeah, it's not the, no, let's not do that, yeah. Sorry, I gotta grab one of the models that has been actually exported up there for Revit usage. Oh, wish I'd prepped this one out a little bit more for you guys too, but let's see if I can find one in here. Nope. I know there's one in here, but, well, actually, maybe check my links. Nothing. Nope. Okay, so I will grab one of these. I know I have one in here. Here's the finished grade. Let me try this one. Nope, not gonna let me. Okay. All right, so obviously I need to get, and I know there's one up there, but you know what, let's actually just do this. Let's go straight Revit. Forget about the CAD stuff. It's possible to do it through CAD, and I could definitely work with you guys if that's something that you're curious about. I just need to get the models lined up first. Anyways, so let's say that I wanted to go and link in, where are you? My structure, if I have a structure and an architectural. So I'm trying to find a school project here that I have. All right, let me see if I have another project. Sorry, guys. Man, I should have prepared for that one a little bit better. But
I'm going to make you multitask while you look for another project. Maybe I can read a couple of the questions I think can be answered without necessarily showing on screen. One of them was whether this feature exists in Revit LT. Are there limitations to the shared coordinates in Revit LT?
I'd say shared coordinates. I would think they would work, but honestly, I'm not sure because I know that you cannot collaborate with Revit LT. You should be able to link though. That's a very good question. That is a very good question. I'll have to get back to you on that one just to make sure. Yeah, Yeah.
We'll look a little bit deeper into that. The other one has to do with the infamous 10-mile radius rule, right? So it's what do you have a CAD file, like a civil file, in the drawing as more than 10 miles from the origin? Is there anything new in 2021 or before to help mitigate that?
Unfortunately, I mean, something, yes, you have to convert it, like sharing it over, creating the kind of coordinate system right inside of Civil that you can translate over that Revit understands, yes. The whole outside of 20 miles, as you saw, no, that's still an issue that we have. It's just in the conversion of the file itself from Civil to Revit. There's a specific conversion, and they have to share, I'd say, I'm not a civil expert, guys, now, but they have to share specific like surfaces. I'm not sure if it was the tin with Revit to communicate that information effectively. And again, if they use the coordinates kind of, if they know that they're going to be working with someone who's going to use this in Revit, use the shared coordinate system, you know, push this, specify coordinates at point, do what have you, to share this over into for Revit, I would say.
Okay, and I have one last one for you, and maybe we'll let you get back to your project.
Oh, sorry, I got distracted there.
Not at all. We have a question of if you can explain a specific error, and it's in quotes, the host model and the link do not share the same coordinate system.
Okay, say that again. The host model and the link don't share the same coordinate system.
Correct.
That's okay. So in that sense, I mean, it's the same. I think it would be the same kind of workflow if you open up a blank model and you link those two in when you don't use shared coordinates. Now, if they need to have that separate coordinate system, I'm not so sure, because you're essentially going to overwrite them at that point. When you go save this positioning as it is here, when you align them in that spare kind of model that you're using, you're telling it where it is, and it's saving it there. Gosh dang, I should have done better with this. Now, maybe I have something in my community center. No, I don't. Good Lord. Okay, I'll just use this one. And you know what? They might not be. I wanted to show you guys something awesome, right? Like bringing this school in and having the HVAC and then the structure, all three models come in and line up together perfectly and be this awesome model. But I may just have to bring in this like Frankenstein type of thing here for you guys, just to kind of show you how this works. So let's say I want to link in my architectural model, right? And I'm just going to go ahead and say internal origin to internal origin. I didn't upgrade it before. All right, well, brought in, sweet, okay. So now it's here, okay? And at this point, if I wanted to go into my site, since this is the architectural model, SI, right? And I'm gonna bring up that project base point and my survey point, which they are turned on here. Oh, there they are. Well, that's nice and lined up. If I do the manage and acquire coordinates here, to acquire them off of that architectural model, it's not gonna move because there it is. They're lined up on it as I brought it in. But in this case, again, I would go ahead, insert, link Revit, and maybe find, actually, I know I have a Syracuse Suites on here. So that would be a good one. Grab my structural model here. There we go. Okay, so here's my framing. Now here I have my my structural model. Okay, so I'll hit open. Of course, I didn't upgrade that one either. But you know what? In BIM 360, if you guys are working in 2020 and you need to upgrade it, there is a nice cloud model upgrade feature in BIM 360, so you don't have to do it this way. And it does take less time, and it's a good way to get all of those models. And if you have a bunch of links for it, you can get all those links kind of upgraded in that folder. So definitely a nice feature that I should have utilized before this, but we're waiting on it. So what I want to say is, if you guys have these models, so if you're, let's say, going up to BIM 360, like you've been working on a Revit model, you've had links in it already, and you're pushing this up to BIM 360, you will have to go to that manage and manage links, which I'll show that one here. Inside of this one, I'll go ahead and show you guys this. But you're going to do the reload, reload from is really what you'd use. So if I know where this model is, which right now it's telling me it's in the cloud, it's in BIM 360, okay? So it knows where it is at this point, I'm good to go. But if it didn't, this is where I would say reload from, okay? And then choose that BIM 360 path. Now, since I have my models linked together, this is at that point, that's when I go manage and publish coordinates and grab that model. I could rename it to structural, whatever I need. I say okay. Because I didn't upgrade it, it does not want to. Okay, so can we go save? And we're just gonna put that up there anyways. Right into BIM 360, I'm gonna put it right up there. Okay. Now let's see if it'll let me. All right, well, I needed to upgrade that model. Once I upgraded that model, and that's before opening it, but once you do that, you can publish these coordinates right back into that model, and then it's gonna save that information to that model. So when we go to link them from then on, they're gonna line up just as nice as they are right now, except nothing is really ever this perfect in a realistic world, right? Usually there's little kind of speed bumps throughout the whole process, but at least with BIM 360, it's a nice, easy process because I know where the links are going to be. And again, a big thing about BIM 360, I was going to see if I actually, you know what, I will pull this up real quick and go to BIM 360. It's probably going to take me to glue. No. So what's nice about BIM 360 is the fact that, obviously you guys have versioning, right? And sweet, it didn't, cool. It has version control. So as these models are getting updated, as they're, let's say either uploaded into BIM 360, or let's go into that complete project example that I was in. If they're getting uploaded to BIM 360, or if your users are working in Revit, or you guys are working in Revit and you're, publishing and well, collaborating, right? You're going to go ahead and synchronize to Central. You can host your Central models here, okay? All in BIM 360, host the links, everything like that. And when these models update, so you're going to see I have version 8 here, version 2, version 3, your link is updating, right? So if we pull this link from, let's say you have permissions, you're working on the structural team, and you have permissions to view, right, this design team here, you can view these models and link them in. And then at that point, when they synchronize or when they make those changes, or they publish, right, in that sense, if they publish and say, hey, this is where we're at, you can see everything that updates inside of your Revit model because you have it linked in. All right, so that's, I really do enjoy that workflow as well. And I really think just pushing these links and the kind of, obviously we do have that that civil 3D for BIM 360 now as well. So if I wanted to go link CAD, I could go link CAD as well. And if I could find a good CAD drawing to put into here, I would just link that right in and be good to go. Now no, she's probably not. I was gonna say I may be able to go ahead and search through here, but I really don't want to take up a lot of your guys this afternoon trying to search through my different folders, hoping that I have one. But yeah, that's you guys would just link that CAD file, and again, as they save changes in CAD or in Civil, those changes, that link is going to update for us.
Okay, we do have a couple of questions all revolving around the same topic. There's a handful of people that are asking to review or to explain the difference between clip states. So clip versus unclipped. There's even a question about whether that's been done away with in 2021. So somebody probably doesn't love that particular feature too much. So maybe you can go into a little more depth with the clip states of the survey point and base point.
Okay. Clipping. Got you. Okay. With clipping and unclipping on the survey base points, you guys are talking about when they are clipped here in terms of saved and when they're locked and unlocked, right? So with clipping them and unclipping them, especially with the survey point, I know there's been kind of quite a debate with this. I keep trying to grab it. I keep grabbing my link there. There we go. There we go. All right. So with clipping these, really all it's doing is if you clip this survey point, you can move it wherever you want, and it's not really changing the information, for some reason, changing the information of the model itself. So if I go into like my my elevations, right, until I clip this saying that's where it is, right? I'm going to move it around, and when I clip it, that's where it's supposed to be. It's where it's supposed to stay. That's about. I was going to say that usually I see these things in terms of staying clipped. I'd say I don't see too many of them in terms of what comes to me that are unclipped, unless they have a lot of a big survey site, I'd say, pulling, well, big survey coming into Revit, and they might unclip it. You know, this is something maybe I can talk to you guys about maybe offside of this, because it's something that I think I would need to also look more into to kind of get more in depth with it. I just know that it's essentially locking that positioning of that survey point to something like this. This is it. That shouldn't move.
Okay, one thing that I mean, one of the things that usually drives me to get people to understand this is obviously thinking of the downstream uses of your model, right? So if you're thinking that, you know, this is not just limited to what you're doing, somebody at some point is going to need to bring multiple models together, federate a model to make this whole thing buildable, right? So do you have any tips or any strategies that you like or that you find to be more successful when it comes to dealing with non-Autodesk products? Like, let's say you've got a steel detailer in Tekla, right? And I know that, you know, Tekla has a particularly interesting coordinate system and way to create grids and all that stuff. But that aside, what are your strategies that you would recommend people put in place if they know that downstream they're going to be dealing with you know, non-Autodesk products where they might have more of a traditional CAD kind of environment for their origins?
Okay, well, I would say to adapt as early as you can to use what you know. Now, in terms of like Tekla, if I get somebody sending me a Tekla model or an IFC, anything like that, I'm going to try and put that into a, insert that into a Revit model or even a Navisworks, something that I can bring into Revit as a link, is really what I would try to do. I would try to bring that in as a link again and pull, or I guess either link it in and specify coordinates, or in that model when you link that into that, you know, base Revit model, specify coordinates at point, you know, pull from your grid lines, as David said, any data that you know. This is where, and do it as early as you can. Yes, there may be some adaptations that you got to make later, but it's probably going to save you a lot of time and effort to get it done earlier. Even if it's just getting, you know, a blank model or, excuse me, a link or something that you guys can get those coordinates into and share that data. The sooner that it's done, the better, okay, for everybody involved. And again, with going off what you know, whether it's CAD, Revit, try to utilize those tools. Of course, you know, bringing in those federated models or what have you, whatever data that you guys are trying to digest, right, or interpret from. But use your knowledge of the shared coordinate systems in Autodesk. Now, I understand you want to share that positioning back, and a lot of times what's good is once you position it, let's say you're bringing it into a CAD drawing or RVT, once you share that positioning, you guys can export a file back, and that file keeps that positioning in it. Okay, so what you guys export out, it keeps that coordinate system. So it's something that, and it's a good conversation to have, I think, up front as well, knowing if anybody works in another platform. It's a good conversation to have about coordinates. How do you guys typically do this with someone that works with Autodesk? You know, have you guys experienced anything before with this? And are you against us, you know, sharing coordinates with you? You know, that kind of stuff. How do you take files, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, the earlier, again, that you guys can get these conversations going, and the earlier that you can get into this process, again, knowing that you're going to bring other models in, it's going to save you time down the kind of lane there.
Absolutely, and I would argue this is a really good case for making a BIM execution plan or a project execution plan that includes, you know, a good chapter on BIM that has these conversations as early as possible with those stakeholders that you already have on board, but maybe anticipate that there are people that you don't have on board yet down the line that might have some of these needs. Along those lines, we have another question that I think is very relevant, and it reads, what is the best way to match the architect's coordinates after the model has been set up and they move it without moving the model so you don't have to reset up all of your sheets? Of course, I would argue, please don't move your model, but it does happen.
Yeah, please don't move your model. But in that sense, when I linked it in, so when I linked in just the let's say the site view or what have you of that commercial building, it didn't affect that model in itself. All the sheets, everything stay the same. The positioning of the model itself in its host, in that specific project stays the same. I'm only telling this model, this is where it's located here. So when I go back into my model, it's not going to change from where you had it when you open it up. It's just when you link in other models, you're saying this is where it is. So if that architect happens to do that, what I would do is, again, go ahead and go through that process again, which is annoying, but it does correct it in a sense of link, you know, link theirs in, link yours in, position it, save it back, move forward.
So the first question looks like, does publish coordinates work with models located on BIM 360? So let's test this out. I'm going to go with a new architectural template. And by the way, since I had some time, I'm going to let you guys know that I did go ahead and prep a little bit better this time and put my models onto BIM 360. So you guys remember that awesome school I was telling you about earlier? I went and loaded it up so I could use it this time. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my architectural model. So notice I've started in a base template on my local, right? And I'm just going to go ahead and link these in. So I'm going to start with this first one, internal origin to internal origin, and then go. Okay, it's going to go ahead and bring this model in, and remember, kind of as we talked last time, I'm going to go ahead and acquire the coordinates off of this model when I pull it through. Okay, so as soon as it populates here, I'm going to go ahead and acquire the coordinates. All right, so that link has populated. So what I'm going to do is, of course, as I said, manage coordinates and acquire coordinates. So as soon as I acquire, you're going to see my survey point jump to match the other survey point. So there it is. Perfect. Okay. So now at this point, that's where I'd go ahead, back up, link Revit. And then I will go ahead and find my MEP model. So here's my MEP model, and just to make this difficult, right? So a lot of times we obviously hope that the origin is going to line up. If everybody models off origin to origin, it would make this process so much easier, but that doesn't happen. So what I'll do is I will go with a, let's go manual base point, right? That one actually might line up too because my base point is lined up. So let's go manual center, right? Okay, that's probably gonna allow me to put it off somewhere. And actually, I think this is great for if you get a model that maybe changes, right? So this, somebody moved the positioning of that model. What we might need to do to, I guess, kind of position that model correctly. All right, so here comes that model. All right, here it is. So I have my link right over here. It's finished loading here. All right, so there's my model. At that point, I'm going to need to go ahead and turn this back on so I can move this if I need to. A lot of times you can move the base point to the base point. That is what I would do here. If they do not line up, feel free to use, of course, your grid lines, anything like that, right? So use any of that data that you have available to you. Okay, just to make sure, if I go to level 1 here, I don't know. Okay, looks like they are lining up. Okay. Okay, just to make sure, we're going to check it out in 3D view. All right, and we look good. We are good. Okay, so at this point, what I would do is go Manage, Publish Coordinates. All right, and I'm going to choose my link. And I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, I have published those coordinates. Now at this point in time, I do need to save this. So I know this is, let's say, going to be the structural model in this case, right? I could go ahead and push this into, let's go Project Files, find my structural team. I'm just going to call this Test Project. There it is. Okay. Now I'm saving this because, as you're going to see, I'm then going to save the positioning back to my other models. All right, so just to test that out, I'm going to close out of all of this. And I'm going to open up. Let's go ahead and grab that architectural model here. Okay. We're going to open the architectural model, and I'm going to link in the MEP. By shared coordinates. All right. I'm going to go ahead and pause this while it's opening. All right, so it has opened. At this point, I can go ahead, Insert, link Revit. And let's go ahead and grab my MEP model. Make sure we utilize shared coordinates and open. All right. All right, we'll give it a second to load up here. There it is. All right. Comes in right where it needs to. All right, just in case. There we go. We can see the full MEP model. All right, so that answered the question of whether that works on BIM 360. I would say yes, it does. All right, and then I think as well, the next question was, if someone messed up and published the wrong coordinates to the model, is there a way to overwrite and republish coordinates? So essentially what you're doing is, yes, you're going to, just as I kind of showed there, we're going to place them wherever we need them. And when you publish those coordinates again back to that, you're essentially saying that's where it's going. So that's kind of doing an overwrite there for you, okay? So, and I'll show the acquire coordinates. So we have another one. Can you show the acquire coordinates? And actually, the feature does not belong in, not belong, I'm sorry, it does not exist in Revit LT. You do not have the collaboration capabilities. I was able to look that one up here under Autodesk's website, and you can still link in these different types of models, okay? But you will not be able to utilize those shared coordinates, okay? So we won't be able to do that. All right, next question is, after acquiring the coordinates from the survey, typically the survey point will move miles away. How is this survey point moved back to within Revit limits? So with this one, if you do acquire coordinates from a survey and that point just disappears, if it goes outside of the Revit 20-mile radius, it's very hard to bring back at that point. Typically what I like to do is I'll start a new kind of template project, I'll link in that file, and then I'll bind it and kind of adjust it from there and bind it, ungroup it, do all that kind of stuff. But I'm essentially transfer project standards and things like that to bring all that information over. At this point, I have not found a really good workflow to bring that survey point back into Revit existence as of yet. All right, so on to the next question. What is the difference between the clip or not clip when moving the survey and project base point? So one thing I did want to notate is that the project base point and the survey point, at least for 2020.2.1, I think it is, and moving forward, you won't see the clip on the base point. The survey point still has a clip on it, and really the difference that you're going to see between clipping and non-clipping is that the clip points, when you move that point, it changes the values of your of your shared site data, right? Your coordinates. It's just changing that data when you now it has to be clipped. In terms of when it's unclipped, it's not reporting any of that information. You can move it wherever, but as soon as you move that survey point and you clip it again, that is what it's saying. This is where that monument is. So it's kind of changing those values of that data. Okay. And again, I did want to point out that is 2020.2.1, I think it was, where they did away with the clip project base point. Okay. So next question is, what's the best way to match the architect's coordinates after the model has been set up and they move it without moving the model, so you don't have to reset up the sheets? So with this question, I think a really good thing to do is, as I kind of showed here, is to link those models together. Start with the base template, architectural, what have you, link in the architect's model and acquire those coordinates. Then link in your model, whether it's structural, mechanical, or what have you, link it in and position it where it needs to go. Once you do that, publish those coordinates back into your model and save. At that point, when you get back into your model, all of your sheet data and everything will be the same. Your building itself will be the same. But when you go to link that architect's model in again, it will line up like it's supposed to. Okay. All right. Next question. The host model and the link do not share the same coordinate system. With this specific error, what you're looking at is that sometimes when you go to link in, I'm guessing this is for a topo surface. That's typically what we see this for, Civil 3D topo surface. But when it comes in, Revit isn't offering the option to position center to center and align. So it'll actually kick up the that warning to you. Now, what I would do is try to either position the model as center to center. So if you do a manual center to center, then you can push it and essentially just place it wherever it needs to go. The other portion of that would be to try and see if you can push that into, maybe a linked model, or again, try another template model and bring that model into it, because sometimes those models don't share the same coordinate space yet. So if you publish coordinates to that model, that should help you get rid of that error message, essentially aligning those two coordinate systems into one. Okay, because really that's what it's saying. It's these two models, these coordinates you're trying to push in don't match. So it's trying to say it won't work. Okay, but again, republishing or publishing those coordinates into that model should get that error message to go away, or manually placing it center to center. Okay. All right. Now, the next question is, how do you handle a CAD file that is further from the origin point when you exceed the 10-mile radius rule? So if I'm handling a CAD file that's that big, what I like to do is actually chunk it out and make like references, like my links, right? And if I can break that thing down into different links, different types of information, sizes of information, I want to say, then I can essentially link them all together and acquire the public and publish coordinates as needed. I can bring all of that and at that point kind of bring it into Revit in pieces as needed, and push all my models and publish the coordinates, acquire coordinates from there as needed again as well. So typically I would see chunking that, okay, and then linking it in from there. All right, now the next question was, let me see here. So the specified coordinate at point is how you get around the clipped. Project base point usage. Okay, so the specified coordinates at point is how you get around the clipped project base point usage. Essentially, yes and no. Since the base point is not clipped any longer, you are just saying, I mean, you can move that base point and it's going to report wherever it goes. When you specify coordinates at point, you're essentially overriding that. You're just telling it where this specific point in your model, what data it is, where that is specifically. Okay. multiple sites. You can show multiple sites, yes. Inside of this model, you can have multiple sites showing at one time. It's just those links, right? So if I had a large CAD file, I would actually link a lot of this information. I'd have as much of it separate as I can and link it all into something like a template file or a interpretation file, right? It kind of, I almost want to say coordination type of thing, but really that's a coordination type of model where you're bringing all that data together to view those multiple sites and the different buildings and models that you have throughout it. Okay, so that looks like I have answered all of the questions on that list. If you guys have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. And again, we'll help as much as possible. Thank you for your time.
So with that, I really thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. And our next meeting is on May 20th. And I would like to feel optimistic that we will be doing this with our new sponsor, Puget Systems, back at the library. But it's anybody's guess at this point. So I will remain optimistic about that. And if we can't, then we'll see you online again in a month. And stay safe, stay healthy. And thank you very much for joining us. And we'll see you then.